This music is incredible. It's from the CD Kundalini Chill Out Mantra Remixes with Krishan. It's on Spirit Voyage, spiritvoyage.com. And I want to introduce our first guest of the day in the Spirit. His name is Jason Gregory, and he is a teacher and international speaker specializing in the fields of Eastern and Western philosophy, comparative religion, metaphysics, and ancient cultures. For several years, he studied with masters in Buddhism, Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Hinduism, and Taoism, traveling to some of the most remote places in the world. And he also produced the documentary, The Sacred Sound of Creation. His website is jasongregory.org, JASONGREGORY. From Krishna and Lao Tzu to Buddha and Jesus, each enlightened master discovered how being receptive to all experience was the key to becoming one with the universe in its spontaneous patterns of order and chaos. Revealing humility as the purest expression of this receptivity, Jason Gregory integrates classic teachings of Hinduism, Buddhism, Taoism, and Hermeticism with principles from quantum physics to explain the science of humility as practiced by the ancient masters. The author shows how, driven by fear, the human mind creates the ego in its greedy and arrogant quest to protect the self and its desires. The ego forges the illusion of separation, weaving complex patterns of reality that shield us from our unity with all beings and result in attitudes of aggression, selfishness, and competition. He reveals how the iconic clash between the aggressive path of the warrior and the simple path of the sage is reflected in the polarized state of the modern world. Yet, this state also reflects the accelerating wave of conscious evolution we are now experiencing. The key to catching this evolutionary wave is humility, the reversal of complexity into simplicity, the ancient science of mental alchemy that represents the great work of eternity, the science and practice of humility, the path to ultimate freedom. I'm very happy to say I read this book, and I'm very happy to say I'm going to be speaking with Jason Gregory this hour about it. Hello, Jason.
Hey, Gary, how are you? Thanks for that was a great introduction, too. Thank you for that.
Oh, well, you're welcome. I'm very fortunate to come across books like this, and I find it's very liberating to read books like this because it's a good reminder of who I am. I instantly relate to it,
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, sometimes we need those reminders. This is why, some of the spiritual classics are usually good to have on your bedside. Just to remind you daily that, you're all right. You're perfectly all right, just the way you are. You're always connected. You're never disconnected. And this is why I usually keep a copy of the Tao Te Ching or say the Yoga Sutras or one of these texts close at hand at all times.
And a lot of that material that you have been studying for years is reflected in this book that you have been keeping at your bedside, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. It's over that time, it sort of sunk deeper roots into my consciousness, and then it allowed me to, the ability to write a book that I have wrote. So yeah, that has been part of the process, that's for sure. Now,
the book is The Science and Practice of Humility, the path to ultimate freedom. I have to relate, to my own life, as I'm, reading this book, and I found that whenever I am feeling in that state of humility, I'm the happiest.
Yeah, definitely. It is the most liberated state because, humility itself is we could say the fruit of all spiritual practice, the fruit of all knowledge and wisdom that we gain. So, that's why you feel the freest in those moments, because that's what humility does. It opens your consciousness to the universe, and you're happy with the way life is, the way it is, without your mind projecting its imagery onto the external reality.
One of the misperceptions that we in the world have, growing up in the conditioned way we have been, is that in order to change the world, we must change its external appearance while allowing our own inner demons to continuing running amok. Because unless you really, and I think one of the big points you make in this book, unless you do the inner work on you, the world isn't going to change. Your
Well,
world
it's
isn't.
not. It's not going. Well, it's not. Yeah, you're exactly right. It's first and foremost, we have to recognize where the world arises from, or our idea of the world. And the idea of the world that we all have as individuals is from within ourselves. So basically, the world is innocent in its makeup until we project our own ideas and beliefs onto it. So then we have to come back to the fundamental understanding of, do I have to really change the external appearance or the makeup of the world, or do I have to change my beliefs, my concepts, and my all-round perception of the world? So basically you have to change yourself. And, that's the real work. That's the great work, what I call the great work of eternity, is where you take that, you reorientate your focus into the inner world instead of projecting onto the outer world to suit your own social and cultural conditioning, which we all are brought up with.
Yeah. And one of the common misperceptions that I read in your book about people about creating their own reality, it's a big, it sells a lot of books, and it gives us a lot of hope that we are in charge, and that we can create our,
Yeah.
we can create our own reality. And a lot of people bought into that big time.
Well, they have. They've brought it into a hook, line, and sinker, and I think that a lot of us sort of go through that sort of stage, especially when we're spiritually waking up. We come across certain books and texts that sort of tell you that, if you just focus on, say, money, for example, that you're going to get checks in the mail, and then no matter how hard you and I try, Gary, that's never going to happen. But it's not to say that the universe isn't magic. It's just to say that, the way that people associate it, especially in the New Age movement, the magic that they associate, say, with the law of attraction is convoluted. It's not exactly how it is, and it doesn't sort of match up with where the ancient teachings came from, which is mental alchemy, which came from Thoth, or Hermes Trismegistus, you could say. And this is where the primary teachings came from. But again, these can be misinterpreted to, I don't want to say that the people who made millions of dollars from their books misinterpret, that they intentionally misinterpret it. Maybe that was just how they understood it at that time. And I guess that where we are collectively, where most people are collectively, they only resonate with that because it's something to do with material acquisition rather than complete liberation. And so I guess that, what's happening now in the world is we've kind of gone through that phase where, look, the law of attraction doesn't really work the way that they said it. You've got to really come back to your own inner work, your own self. And, if material acquisition comes along the way, then, you might be fortunate enough. But that's not really the premise of the work. And, I guess that, it's a sad thing that I guess there might be people out there who are intentionally making money off that sort of misinterpreted view.
People will say, well, if I keep a positive attitude, the positive mental framework, that is good, right?
Yeah, it is good. It is good. Yeah, of course it is good. Like it's it's not a beat up on positivity. I guess the problem is with a lot of the people who push the law of attraction, it's more so they are only positivity pushers without acknowledging the negative. Now, I'm not saying that we should love and cherish the negative, but we at least got to acknowledge that it exists. We've got to acknowledge that positive and negative, in reality, are only two opposite extremes of the one pole. If we look into Chinese philosophy, we see yin and yang, meaning the feminine and masculine principles of the universe, and same in Hinduism, you see Shiva and Shakti. These are all throughout our wisdom traditions. They're throughout, even our own Western psychology. A lot of Western psychologists look at it in this framework. So again, there's not. It's not to, you could say, over-glorify positivity and suppress negativity. It's, what would happen is, naturally, if you understand negativity, you're already positive in nature anyway. Like it's like when we wake up in the morning, we feel fresh because the sun is there, and we're ready to do our positive activities through the day, our active activities. And at nighttime, we retreat into a more relaxed state where we go into bed, and this is kind of a more negative retreat. So they're two extremes, but again, as you would see through the concept of night and day, that the positive holds more value, you could say, in that sense. So, I know that sounds a bit metaphysical, but that's sort of the reality of what we're going through. Is like, as much as we want to hold on to the positive, there are going to be negative fluctuations in your life, but it's the way that you see it, it's the way that you approach it. I think that if you approach it with kind of an arrogant positivity, that you're just pretending to be positive, then that might be one of the major problems, because your positivity has to be natural, it has to be authentic.
Exactly. Let me read this from your book on the introduction. The science and practice of humility reveals the entire process each individual goes through on his way to enlightenment as it unfolds through three phases of growth and stages of growth: the great work of eternity, the evolution of perception, and the science of humility. Learning the science and art of an enlightened master is not another way to filling one's mind to the brim with information acquired from external sources in the vain hope that this will somehow grant enlightenment. On the contrary, it is a process of refining the mind, becoming familiar with the mysterious regions of simplicity within the psyche, where the science of humility is spawned. By contrast, modern external science is only concerned with the exploration of matter through various definitions of complexity, a process in which we lose sight of and no longer value what in essence is very simple. It's the reversal of complexity into simplicity, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the basic process. We've got to, I guess the real work begins there when we reverse that. Our complex structure of the psyche, which we've developed from the world that we live in, and reverse that into the actual simple essence. You could look at it from the brain structure, where we only stimulate mainly the prefrontal cortex, but we have no sort of concept of what's beneath that, the unconscious, where actually we could say that's where the God principle dwells, or the Tao dwells, or Brahman dwells. It's our most archaic or primal aspect of the mind, and that archaic and primal aspect of the mind is in itself very simple. It's not complex. Really, only our prefrontal cortex, when hyperstimulated through intellectual or just external stimuli, we lose sight of that, our essence, what connects Gary and Jason deep down, connects both of those individuals deep down. We lose sight of that because of our complex structure in our mind.
Thank you. And there's also this, what I really connected with reading your book is the understanding the masculine and feminine principle of creation, and how that works. And the masculine is, I like to see it's the sky, and the earth is Mother Earth, is the there's all ways the whole yin yang can go, but I love I feel like it is a combination of receptivity and action. I feel that am I seeing this correctly, reading this correctly? Jason Gregory is our guest. That we must develop our female aspect, the simplicity of reception, and then we will, and then when that is fully, when that is more developed, then our actions will take on more of a natural, authentic flavor.
That's perfectly said, Gary. We've lost touch with that feminine aspect of ourselves, and like what you said, if we touch base on that, our actions will speak volumes. They will be natural, they'll be authentic, they'll be spontaneous, and actually humility and receptivity are qualities of that feminine aspect. And we've built a society and culture that's basically built on just doing. It's based on just forcing yourself applying yourself to the world in a forceful manner, because we're taught, especially through our educational structures, that we can't achieve anything the other way by being receptive, by being humble. Humility is kind of frowned upon in this world as sort of a weakness. So, but when you understand the processes of consciousness, you understand, like what you said with the yin-yang, is that when you align with that yin principle, which is the feminine, when you start to really feel that, when you have that feeling aspect of your consciousness, when you align with that and you are receptive to your own experience and you listen to other people deeply, it's just a very soft sort of state of consciousness. When you align with that, then that's sort of what they call in Taoism Wu Wei, which is sort of effortlessness, but that leads into Wei Wu Wei, which is doing, not non-doing, which is basically meaning that you will go through your life with a very simple, soft state of consciousness, but you're still in touch with the world. You're still doing actions, but you're doing them from a very natural and authentic place, and it's very genuine. It's kind of like when you see someone who's very genuine with what they do, we know it deep down in our gut, but when we see people who are not doing their genuine actions, when they're not really acting themselves, we deep down we know that they're not. So, I would say that definitely what you said, if we align with that feminine aspect, then all of our actions will be refined, they'll be authentic, and that's where the actual real evolution of consciousness begins. And, I want to say, too, that a lot of people around the world sort of have a misinterpreted view of the divine feminine. They sort of associate it just with females. And it is associated to females, but it's also associated to men. These are aspects of the psyche. They're not physical aspects.
Right, exactly. I think that's a very good point that you make. These are aspects of the psyche, and we tend to want to anthropomorphize, these qualities and put them on the physical level.
Yeah, definitely. We do that with everything. It's God's anthropomorphized. Everything's anthropomorphized in our society, but we have to realize that the divine feminine is basically that feeling aspect of your being. It's that receptive aspect, and like I'd like to say to the listeners that when you're sitting around, say tomorrow or on the weekend or this and that, when you feel that sense of boredom, go into it. Don't fill it up full of noise or activity. Dive into the boredom, marinate in it, and see if there's something inside it. Just be in that moment.
It's a good point. I always wake up before the sun, and I'm up for a couple hours before the sun actually. And this morning I sat on my couch, and I have a mantra practice and a meditation practice that I fuse together and write. But just the feeling of sitting on the couch in the dark, and I love that word you say, marinate in it. And I was doing my mantra practice. I was marinating in it. It's just like. And I was just feeling as the feeling it instead of a rote practice, experience it as luxuriate in it, enjoy it.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, that word's the perfect one. Yeah, marinate. I use that sometimes. It's get right into it, enjoy it. Once you sort of step back into your state of being, there's not really a sense of you wanting to enjoy it or you wanting to retreat from it. It's just you're allowing yourself to be. You're allowing yourself to see reality as it is without our filters. And I'm like yourself. I like to get up before the sun and sit quietly and just and let all of my senses come back to the root of their cause. If we do that, because in our culture we basically pacify the senses constantly, which we know, but if we can sort of retract from that, we can understand what the early wisdom traditions were saying with feeling the root of those senses.
The root of those senses. It's beautiful. And I think, and also I like that you mentioned about just be, experience it. Don't go after, there's a hook, the hook of wanting to feel good, and yet what we think of feeling good, what feeling good is not necessarily. We need to explore where that is. What is really to let go of even the sense of wanting to feel good, and just because I think I think it's about wanting to get back to our natural state. There's part of us that really wants to come from that, be authentic, live in that, and I think that's what your book is all about: the science and practice of humility, the path to ultimate freedom. Jason.
Yeah, can you just repeat the last part of what you said there, Gary? I just missed it.
Oh, I forgot, but let me see what I can what comes up. I can say, paraphrase the science and practice of humility, the path to ultimate freedom. Your book, to me, what it reminds me of is the sense of just letting go, and letting your authentic self be revealed to you, so you can you can only, but you can't do that if you have conceptions of what it's supposed to look like.
No, you can't. You're definitely right. It's we kind of associate our own liberation with our ideas and our concepts of reality. So we usually use our image. We usually use our images, to build our own state of liberation. But the point of the matter is, in the end, you've got to let all that go. And I kind of equate it to, say, the practice of Zen. If you look at the practice of Zen, they sort of take out all concepts, all images, all symbols, take it all out, retract from it, get to the stage where there's nothing left, and then see what happens from there. And what will happen from there is sort of an intense frustration, because you can't really feel yourself as, in a sense, you can't feel yourself as one with the universe. And then when you go through this process, then you begin to let go. Then you begin to really, you could say, this is what happened to Buddha. When Buddha, in the story of Buddha, when he had the 7 years under Hindu masters studying asceticism, when he couldn't feel it, he could just completely let go. Under the Bodhi tree one day, he accepted a milky soup from a young girl herding cattle, and then he really realized that in that moment of letting go of all of his notions of liberation, all of his concepts, and then the real, you could say, the unification of nirvana and samsara took place.
Beautiful. And I want to talk to you about the unification of both. I think we tend to prefer the one over the other, but yet one doesn't exist without the other. It's funny. It's subtle.
It is very subtle. It's, as you've probably touched upon in your life, Gary, the universe itself is paradoxical. Our life is paradoxical. And it's almost like if we explore that paradox, then we understand it a lot better. We understand the universe a lot better. And you could say that, when people, especially when they come into spirituality, they have their own ideas of enlightenment. So when they think of nirvana, they think that they are going to experience some magical event where they're going to step into the light and they'll be enlightened. And, that's true in one sense, but the thing is that what you really realize is that if nirvana is eternity and samsara is time, then that can only be here and now. So that means that what we have is mutual. Nirvana is samsara and samsara is nirvana. It's, time and eternity fold in on themselves in this moment. And that's the whole idea. That's where enlightenment actually is. It's not an event. it's kind of a way of grooving with the eternity in the eternal now. It's kind of a dance, and this is kind of the rhythm, the dance of Shiva in the moment. And it's only when we realize that the paradox is that eternity is not a long time away; it's right here. And so that means nirvana is here, but it's within samsara.
It's beautiful. Well, and I love reading your book because it's because of your vast experience and your studies with Buddhism and Gnosticism, Hermeticism, Hinduism, and Taoism, and Eastern and Western philosophy and comparative religion, metaphysics, and ancient cultures. I greatly respect what you're coming up with, but what really happens is that I see like that. When truth recognizes truth, I see a mirror reflection of who I am. Nothing and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
It's exactly right, Gary. It's like when you recognize that truth, you see that mirror reflection. But it is like, you could say that relatively you're Gary, but deep down you're the entire universe. So it's kind of an aspect of which one am I? And in a sense you're both. And so, like what you said, you're nothing and you're everything. It's an infinite paradox. It's and in China they try to answer this through a Chinese ideogram called Hixiang Sheng, which is basically mutual arising, which is basically that you could say that the deepest aspect of this is that the universe produces consciousness, but consciousness evokes the universe. So this is kind of the aspect. This is kind of the parable that we're in. One doesn't come before the other. It's kind of like when Stephen Hawking asks, "What's first, the chicken or the egg?" And what the old ancient masters of China would say is that they both mutually arise in some crazy manner. But the way that you can understand that is just experience your own life and see how things mutually arise in your own life. And this is it goes back to, like what you said, it goes back to the nothing and everything principle.
And how can you explain that? There's not the space goes on forever. We're always thinking of a beginning and an end to everything. I want to talk to you some more right after we do this short station break. Okay, Jason? In here.
Definitely, Gary.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, this is Laurie Anderson, and you're listening to 91.5 FM WRPI Troy, the Upstate Underground.
You are listening to WRPI Troy. We have Jason Gregory with us, I'm very happy to say. And his book, The Science and Practice of Humility, The Path to Ultimate Freedom, it's on Inner Traditions. They always have some great authors in books that I happen to get my hands on and interview the authors, which is great for me and for the listeners, the people that are listening. So to be in touch and talk with you. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from a place called Tiruvannamalai in southern India. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, Gary. You might be. It was where, if you know the great 20th century mystic Ramana Maharshi.
Yes.
Lived. Yeah, so I've come here a few times. I like this place. It's got a good feeling, and it's a good place just to be and to ride and just to experience life. It's a great place.
That's great. Before I want to talk to you a little bit about the Sacred Sound of Creation, your documentary. When was that produced? When did you produce that?
That was 2012.
Okay.
That was made. Yeah.
What was that? Yeah. So that's available. People go to your website, right?
Yeah, it's actually available free online through YouTube. You can just go to my website and you'll find it.
That's great.
Or you can just, or you can type it in online. Yeah, that was kind of, you could say, a Dharma work. It was just a work for free for people to learn. And it goes into some of the things that I talk about in the book, but not all of them, but it goes into, at the end, especially towards, I speak about the science of humility a little bit.
Yes, thank you. One thing I definitely want to talk to you about, and is a big theme in the book as well, is change, and that the only constant is change. And we're always trying to make something permanent. We want our relationships, the person in our life. We don't want them to change. We don't want to change. We're fighting age, we're with the youth culture, this whole struggle against change is going on, and yet that's the only thing that's real.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it? We're caught in a bind here because we're trying to control change, and it's, as we know, the only thing that is permanent is change. And so what we've got to do is, if we really want to have that feeling of permanency, or that enduring feeling of the universe, is to sink in with change, is to flow with it instead of fight the stream. Like they say in Taoism, you can either flow with the Tao, or you can drown in the river. It's your choice. So like what you said with the youth culture, we're fighting age, we're fighting change within ourselves. We don't even want to change our concepts. But when you even look at yourself on a biological level, you don't even have the same cells within your body after 24 hours. There's always constant changes happening, beyond your awareness. You and I are changing right now, Gary, and we don't know it. Like there's things that are happening always. And what I say is that, especially in the book, is when you align yourself with the science of humility, then you start to flow with change, and you begin to serve the universe, you could say, in a wise manner.
I like that. Serve the universe in a wise manner. And when you get to this point, it only can come. You can't do it out of force, or you can't. It has to come out because you are ready to accept who you are. Humility means you're accepting the way things are, right?
Exactly. It's the natural virtue of the universe. You don't have to force actually humility upon yourself. This is not what my book's about. It's about, as I write in the last chapter, it has to be as natural as growing hair, meaning that it has to just come spontaneously. You really have to have that feeling that, that you've let go of the river bank of fear, and you're ready to flow with the cosmic ocean. And this is the trouble we find ourselves in, because in our daily life we cling to things that are in themselves have passed their use by date, because something else spontaneous and something else fresh is replacing it naturally, organically. And we don't see the universe organically anymore. We see it sort of as a construct, which is out of sync actually with how the East used to see the universe.
A construct, yeah. It's something that we don't. It's made up of what we think it is, and it comes from our thoughts, and those thoughts are whatever gives us a sense of what we want to see. It gives us the sense of security in a way.
It does, yeah. We are constantly measuring our life. We're measuring the universe. This is what Maya means. Maya means measurement in Sanskrit. It means that, we're basically constantly measuring our life, and we're not ready to open up to the real organic universe that's there. And, this sort of comes from, we could say, from a lot of the monotheistic religions which have infiltrated most of the psychic thought around the world, where basically God is a creator, is a carpenter. We could say he created the universe. Where you go into China or even India, and there's the notion that the universe is a play. It grows organically, and the best way to see this as a living truth is to see how your body and your actual living organism grows, and your understanding grows. Nothing created that. We can't force our liver to stop. It just functions of itself. And these are the things, like, when we try to understand God as a king, we lose sight of the universe, because we start to feel subject to a king, and we don't really feel one with it.
Yes, that's very good. I love I'm happy to have read your book, and I love all the chapters. I want to go to and mention the hypnosis of duality chapter a little bit today. Um,
Yeah.
taken from the writings of the Tao Te Ching. Do you want to read that, or do you have the book available on page 98?
Let me have a look.
Yeah, or I could read it. It doesn't
Maybe,
matter.
maybe, yeah. You read it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it says in the Tao, when people see some things as beautiful, other things become ugly. When people see some things as good, other things become bad. Being and non-being create each other. Difficult and easy support each other. Long and short define each other. High and low depend on each other. Before and after follow each other. Therefore, the master acts without doing anything and teaches without saying anything. Things arise and she lets them come. Things disappear and she lets them go. But she doesn't possess, acts but doesn't expect. When her work is done, she forgets it. That's why it lasts forever. Beautiful. And you write in your own words, watching the universe unfold in all its wonder, a sage perceives only the course of things rising and falling as one entity. Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that verse of the Tao. Actually, yeah, that's a beautiful one, Gary.
It really is. Because you can see that it also. So if you're clinging to one without expecting the other, you want things to be easy, and you can't, and you reject things being difficult. I mean,
Yeah,
when the things are difficult, the thing is that accept it as difficult in that moment because it's passing. Everything is
yeah,
go.
yeah.
Everything is going through phases.
Yeah, that's beautiful. But the best way to look at that is if we look at pain and pleasure. We've built a world that's seeking just pleasure without embracing or acknowledging that even pain exists. We're trying to actually eliminate pain even biologically these days with the use of pharmaceuticals and so forth. But if you realize, like what Lao Tzu says in the Tao Te Ching there, that both pleasure and pain itself depend on each other in a sense. You can't sort of hold on to pleasure without acknowledging that pain is there. And likewise, you cannot hold on, you cannot have a painful experience without knowing that pleasure itself will come sometime in the future. And, so we've built a world that's just seeking pleasure without embracing pain, and this is why we have a lot of psychological problems in the world. Because when I say pain, I mean suffering mainly on a psychological level, and because we're not embracing that, we're not seeing the actual reality of what's going on. And so you could say that a master reconciles pain and pleasure together and just acknowledges that they are phases, like what you said. They are phases of life that arise in your being. But if you over-identify with them, if you overreact to them, you'll seek refuge through whatever that may be. If we look at pain, most people seek refuge through alcohol or drugs or pharmaceuticals or something of the kind. But if we could see pain really as something, just as a process, we could dive into it, we could work through it, and then the light, we could say, is at the end of the tunnel in that respect.
Definitely. So the key is the balance. Is that this is what we're striving for, to be in the center of it. You could
Exactly.
say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I like to use what Alan Watts once said. He just said, basically when you want to understand the polarity of life, it's just like riding a bike. When you ride a bike, if you sort of sway to one side, you've just got to recenter and keep riding. But the thing is, the riding is going to continue. You've just got to get good at riding the bike.
Yes, you got to get good at riding the bike. I remember when I first started riding a bike, or driving a car for that matter. But
Yeah.
I like the analogy of riding the bike better because it's more simple. You get on, and the wheels turn, and you're turning the wheels. But it's all a matter of balance. So you have to stay in the moment, because if you're not in the moment, you're not going to deal with the curb, the bump, or whatever.
No, you're not. You're going to be way off course, and we've all experienced that in our life, haven't we? When we're riding our bike, meaning when we're going through our life, we kind of we fall off the bike a lot, and sometimes we get lost in delusion for a long time, and it takes sometimes people a long time to recenter their focus and come back to themselves. But that's the nature of the cosmos. We feel the most at peace when we're in balance, and a lot of people, some people, most people in the world don't really know what that balance is, because we are off running to and fro towards being overexcited or to be to suffer more. Some people are. They love suffering. Even spiritually, people feel that they should suffer for their enlightenment. But this is not really the way it is. So the way life is if you find that balance, if you find that the reconciliation between the actual unified opposites, which is the yin and yang, or the Shiva and Shakti, then you find the balance in your life, and actually that's when when we see an individual who sort of has embodied, I don't want to say class, but a certain charisma or confidence that it's almost cosmic. It's they're not arrogant, but they sort of move through their life not really bothered at all by daily happenings and whatever can be thrown at them. They sort of deal with it in a very graceful manner.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, and I think we all can experience in our own lives when, and I love the word graceful manner, because it's of grace. It's something that it's something bestowed upon you. You don't. It's just something given to you in that moment, and then it's accepted.
It is. When you start to marinate your soul, like what we said, and like what you said beautifully, when you're riding your bike in that moment, when you marinate yourself in that process, then that divine essence of grace begins to enter your life, and a lot of people say divine guidance or the way of the Tao or whatever you want to call it, but there is that aspect, and it's experiential. It's something that you can't really explain through words or symbols or so forth and so on, but that is an aspect of the universe.
Yes. I love this book has been so, it's like it's like a companion for me. The Science and Practice of Humility, reading this book this week, The Path to Ultimate Freedom. It's been a very nice companion, and it like a friend, you talk about it, what is a Jiva Mukta in this, and I really relate to this. I have experience, when I with humility, I do one of my practices is kirtan, and through a kirtan practice, and when we go to or chant, and especially with a group, there is that sense of all becoming one, and our hearts are open, and we definitely feel that experience of humility. And once you know what that feeling is, that's the thing that is home.
Exactly. Yeah, like what you've experienced with your practices with kirtan, Gary. It's when you're in a collective group, or even if you're by yourself, when you're sincere about a certain practice, or you're sincere about just life in general, and about knowing yourself in general, then, like you said, your heart begins to open up to the cosmos, and you have that feeling of receptivity, humility, and just connection with each other. The deep down sense of enlightenment is really a sense of unity. It's not anything more than that. And that sense of unity is kind of a transcendental experience that mystics and philosophers and so forth and so on have always tried to explain, but it's something very mysterious, and it's and we experience it, like you said, in those moments, in those collective moments, whether it be through kirtan or collective meditation or even meditation by yourself. But the next process after that is to take that sort of out into your life and kind of have that essence, have that aroma with you everywhere, where people can sense that about you. And that's why I like to call Zen in life. You need to walk Zen in life, meaning what you said about having that open heart center, but having that, whether you're going to a game of football or whether you're going to pay the bills at the bank, you've just got to, it gets deeper and deeper and deeper, for each individual. Some people have it momentary, some people have it a lasting experience of it.
Exactly. Thank you for writing this book. Jason Gregory, our guest this week on today's In the Spirit. The Science and Practice of Humility, The Path to Ultimate Freedom. JasonGregory.org, JASON, Gregory, GREGORY.com. Jason, I hope that maybe we could do some more radio at some point.
Oh, definitely. I'd love to, Gary. And look, thank you for reading it too. If I, this is the mutual arising thing that we were talking about. If I don't write, you don't read. It's kind of like that's the nature of the universe. And thank you for reading it and enjoying it. And I can tell from your words and your interview, you yourself are living a humble path.
That's what makes me happy. Actually, my happiness is derived from letting go and surrendering to what is, and just accept. I feel like I get directions and I follow. I feel like that. Even the way this radio show is laid out, there's very little effort in terms of I've got to get up in the morning, I've got to go up, I got to do this, I've got to drive here, I've got to bring my stuff to the radio station, I got to get everything together. Yet it doesn't have that sense of effort about it, If and the guests that come on the show it's like they're magnetized to be here. So I feel like I've been working with this for a while, working with this the being instead of doing concept, just being as a living reality, and enjoying that this is a state I'm continuing to work on and explore and enjoy and develop and life is a big adventure, and I like being a part of it. I love exploring. I don't know what else to do, but do that. I'm not enamored by the physical world.
No, and I love sharing the world with you too, Gary. So, what you just said, that's music to my ears. That's what I want to hear from people, is that they've come to that place. You know what I mean? Where you've kind of, like what you said, used the word surrender, where you've let go of all of the ideas of what Gary was or who he is, and really thrown yourself into the fire, and into the spiritual fire, and that's where life begins,
Okay.
And we know that, and and most people do. So, and hopefully one day I'll get to New York State, and maybe I can do it in studio radio.
Oh, that would be great. Thank you so much, Jason. If you'd like to stay on the line, I'll speak with you off air for a moment.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May the light of 1,000 suns shine through. Live the life of grace that you were meant to. May the light of 1,000 suns shine through.